So the new Xiaomi 13 series just launched in the global markets, and I have the entire series here with me today. The Xiaomi 13, 13 Pro, and 13 Lite. And before we get things going, I want to start off by saying this is one insane lineup. In typical Xiaomi fashion, they have left nothing out of the box. Each device comes with a jelly case, a USB charging cable, and a charger to suit their maximum charging capabilities. This is TechNick, and these are my impressions of Xiaomi's best lineup ever. The Xiaomi 13 Pro starts at €12.99, which is 300 more than the Xiaomi 13, and the Xiaomi 13 Lite is just half that price at $4.99. The Xiaomi 13 series has a new refreshed design this year, and they all look really good. But I've got to say, the Xiaomi 13 is probably my favorite. It comes in black, white, or the color that I have here known as Flora Green. It's the only one of the three that has boxy, squared off aluminum frames, and I really love how it feels in the hand thanks to its compact design. The back is made of glass and it's quite a bit thinner and lighter than its bigger brother. The Xiaomi 13 Pro is the heaviest and thickest of the three due to it being larger and the fact that its back is made from ceramic, which leads to just two color options here, ceramic white and ceramic black. Its edges are also made from aluminum, but they are curved in typical Xiaomi style, and while the camera module is identical to the non-Pro variant, the Pro's module curves into the back. The Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro both have an IP68 dust and water resistant certification, but the thinnest and lightest device of the lot here lacks an IP rating, that being the Xiaomi 13 Lite. The 13 Lite comes in three different colors, that being black, light pink, or the one that I have being light blue. And while its design is elegant, it's pretty similar to older generation Xiaomi phones, especially in terms of the camera module. It curves on the sides just like the 13 Pro, but has a glass back like the Xiaomi 13, and unlike the more expensive models, the Lite has plastic frames. The Xiaomi 13 Lite and Xiaomi 13 Pro have very similar bezels around their screens. They are both curved and both have a noticeable chin. The Xiaomi 13, on the other hand, has razor-thin bezels and hardly a chin at all. Of course, the 13 Lite is the only one that has a pull-shaped notch, but we'll get more on that later. The Xiaomi 13 has the smallest display at 6.36 inches, the Pro has the largest at 6.73 inches, and the Lite sits nicely in the middle with 6.55 inches. They all have 120Hz AMOLED screens, but only the 13 and 13 Pro have E6 panels, and only the 13 Pro sports a QHD resolution and LTPO tech for a 1:120Hz refresh rate. However, they all have the exact same 240Hz touch sampling rate. The one major drawback of the regular 13 is that it lacks 1920Hz PWM dimming that both the Pro and the Lite manage to pack in. And while the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro can both reach 1900 nits of peak brightness, the Lite is limited to 1000 nits, but in all fairness, that's still extremely bright for a budget range device. When it comes to software, they are all skinned with global MIUI 14 software. But while the 13 and 13 Pro are both skinned over Android 13, the Xiaomi 13 Lite is still stuck on Android 12. The good news is that all three offer the same great MIUI 14 appeal, with identical software improvements such as large folders. MIUI 14 also requires less storage space, has less bloatware, and all of them offer full Google services out of the box. And to get you through the day, the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Lite are both kitted with the same sized 4500 mAh battery, while the 13 Pro steps it up a bit with a slightly larger 4820 mAh cell. The Xiaomi 13 and 13 Lite share the same 67 watt wide charging speeds, but again the 13 Pro takes it up a notch with even faster 120 watt wide charging. And while the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro both offer 50 watt wireless charging, the Xiaomi 13 Lite skips out on this flagship feature. All three of these devices come with cooling systems inside of them to keep things cool while charging and doing other things, of course. But while the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro both have liquid cooled vapor chamber systems, the Xiaomi 13 Lite has a more simplified light style heat dissipation solution. These cooling systems also keep their heavy hitting specs at bay when running demanding apps such as benchmarks, and it's no surprise to see the 13 and 13 Pro perform similarly since they share many of the same components. They both have Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset, they both have up to 12 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, and they both have UFS 4.0 storage, though the Xiaomi 13 is limited to 256 gigs, the 13 Pro caps out at 512 gigs of storage. The Xiaomi 13 Lite is no match for its more expensive counterparts, but still has impressive specs for its price, such as a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 CPU, up to 8 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM, and 256 gigs of UFS 2.2 storage. But unfortunately, none of them support expandable storage. Another thing worth mentioning are the speakers, since they all support Dolby Atmos, and while the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro house dual stereo speakers, the 13 Lite just has one single down-firing speaker. As mentioned earlier, the Xiaomi 13 Lite is the only one here with a pill-shaped notch, and that is due to it housing dual selfie cameras. The first is a 32 megapixel 100-degree field of view ultra-wide snapper, and the second is an 8 megapixel depth sensor for natural-looking bokeh. The other two devices share the same single 32 megapixel selfie camera with an 89.6 degree field of view. So the Xiaomi 13 Lite certainly has the best selfie specs on paper. Not to mention it's the only one here with Xiaomi's Selfie Glow, which means it has two physical LED flashlights at the top corners of its display. The Xiaomi 13 Lite might handle dynamic range the best as well as offer a better depth of field, but I feel that the 13 and 13 Pro edge ahead in terms of detail, with the Xiaomi 13 Pro taking the lead in terms of color accuracy. What's up guys, this is Technic recording a selfie bokeh video on the Xiaomi 13, 13 Pro and 13 Lite. Unfortunately, the 13 Lite is stuck to 720p 30 fps when using bokeh selfie video, while the other two can do 1080p 30 fps. But when it comes to regular selfie video recording, while the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro are capped at 1080p 30 fps, the Xiaomi 13 Lite can go all the way up to 1080p 60 fps video recording when using the selfie cam. When it comes to night selfie videos, none of them are perfect, but while the Xiaomi 13 Pro is the most consistent, the 13 Lite handles light and color the best, but lacks in detail of the subject. And while the Xiaomi 13 Lite has great shallow depth of field, its edge detection in bokeh selfie video at night certainly needs some work, but those dual flashes seem to help out quite a bit. The Xiaomi 13 Lite seems to oversharpen and oversaturate things a bit when taking selfie photos at night, but unlike the day pics we saw earlier, it actually packs in more detail, especially when using those dual flashes in portrait mode. It truly knows how to make the subject pop at night. So the selfies on all three devices are a bit of a mixed bag, but I do feel that the Xiaomi 13 Lite is targeted for those of you who favor selfie performance over rear back camera performance. And that is because the back cameras on the back of the Xiaomi 13 Lite are no match for the 13 and 13 Pro. The Lite offers a 50 megapixel IMX766 main camera alongside an 8 megapixel ultra wide and 2 megapixel macro sensor. The regular 13 steps things up with a 54 megapixel IMX800 main camera that crops into 50 megapixels, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto sensor for 3.2 times optical zoom. Finally, a compact Xiaomi phone with a telephoto packed in. So that leaves us with the camera king of this lineup, the Xiaomi 13 Pro. It has a massive 1-inch sensor size 50 megapixel IMX989 main camera, a 50 megapixel ultra wide, and a 50 megapixel floating telephoto sensor, which offers 3.2 times optical zoom as well, but can also achieve a focal range from 10 centimeters to infinity for close-up telephoto shots. The Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro both offer optical image stabilization for their main and telephoto sensors, while the Xiaomi 13 Lite sticks to digital stabilization. Another thing that the 13 Lite lacks is the Leica partnership, which both the 13 and 13 Pro make use of. The Xiaomi 13 Pro can't use any Leica mode at native 50 megapixels when using the ultra wide, but when binned down can make use of Leica Authentic to match that of the 13, but the Pro tends to darken things even in daylight. Switching Switching over to Leica Vibrance when using the ultra-wides brightens up the 13 Pro's shot quite a bit, but I feel that the 13 still takes a more rounded photo, and the 13 Lite actually surprised me a bit with its 8 megapixel ultra-wide sensor. All three can shoot at native 50 megapixels when using their mains, but the 13 Pro crops in when binning down and tends to oversaturate things, but not quite as badly as the 13 Lite does. Leica Vibrance on the main seems to be the sweet spot for the 13 Pro, making everything stand out the most here in terms of color accuracy and detail when compared to others. And the 13 Pro is the only one here with a high megapixel count when it comes to using the telephoto. Binning the telephoto shot down truly shows what the 13 Pro's telephoto is capable of, but the Xiaomi 13 isn't far off. And with Leica Vibrance enabled, the 13 Pro makes colors pop even more, but I have to say the shot on the 13 is very well balanced. 10 times zoom is the max zoom when using the main camera on the Xiaomi 13 Lite, 30 times is the max zoom for the Xiaomi 13 and seems to outperform the 13 Pro in detail, and 70 times is the max zoom for the Xiaomi 13 Pro, which looks okay. The Xiaomi 13 Lite is the only one here with a dedicated macro camera, but the 13 Pro does a fantastic job with super macro mode enabled, which is strangely missing from the regular Xiaomi 13. And here's a taste of what the Xiaomi 13 Pro's floating telephoto sensor can do due to infinity focusing. And here's what the 13 and 13 Pro's telephotos produce in portrait mode using 3.2 times optical zoom. Both the 13 and 13 Pro can also take portraits using their main sensors, but the 13 Pro comes out on top in terms of depth of field due to that large 1-inch sensor. They are all capped at 1080p 30 FPS when recording bokeh video with their main cameras, and the 13 Pro seems to have some lighting issues, but the 13 Pro shines bright when using the telephoto camera. The 13 and 13 Pro both record 8K 24fps video using their main cameras, but the 13 Pro is a tad smoother. And while the 13 and 13 Pro can record 4K video at 60fps using the main camera, the 13 Lite is capped at 30fps. The Xiaomi 13 Lite is capped at 1080p 30fps when it comes to ultra-wide video, the 13 at 4K 30fps, and the 13 Pro sticks to 4K 60fps. 4K 24fps seems to be the sweet spot for the 13 and 13 Pro when recording ultra-wide video at night, and both of them have a night video mode option when using the main camera, which is capped at 4K 24fps and seems to make the biggest difference on the 13 Pro. I've set night mode on for all three devices when taking snaps at night, and the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro's ultra-wide pics look best by far, but the 13 seems to be most color accurate. The 13 Pro no doubt takes the lead when taking a main shot due to that huge sensor, but I must say I was pretty impressed with the Xiaomi 13 Lite as well. 3.2 times optical zoom using the telephotos on the 13 and 13 Pro come out fantastic, but the 13 Pro controls light slightly better, and all of them cap out at 10 times digital zoom when night mode is enabled. Taking portraits with the 13 and 13 Pro's telephoto sensors make for some pleasing shots, but the 13 Pro seems to outclass its little brother here. And the same can be said when taking portrait at night using the mains. But when we set portrait mode aside and have night mode kick in, I feel that the Xiaomi 13 takes the most balanced shot here. So this entire Xiaomi lineup have one thing in common. They all take fantastic photos and videos. Some lack in hardware, others lack in optimization, and while the Xiaomi 13 Pro is the king in terms of raw specs, I feel that the regular Xiaomi 13 is the most consistent. Not to mention the Xiaomi 13 Lite produces some of the best results for its price range. Being the cheapest device here at just 499 euros, I must say the Xiaomi 13 Lite is one fantastic device, especially since it checks all the right boxes and more for a mid-range device. Being the most expensive device out of the three at 1,299 euros, the Xiaomi 13 Pro has a lot, and I mean a lot of competition out there, but it doesn't fail to impress in any way. You get exactly what you're paying for because this thing has it all. But for me at least, the Xiaomi 13, the middle child that starts at just 999 euros, has so much going for it in such a tiny compact design, it's hard to not be intrigued. Let me know your thoughts on Xiaomi's latest 13 series lineup in the comments section down below. And also tell me which one impresses you the most, as well as which one you're thinking of picking up. This is Technic, and I'll catch you in the next one.